Well, good morning. It's 8:12, 55 degrees in downtown Galesburg. Galesburg's morning news. Tyler Gumm, Jay Redfern, Cameron Lyon. Well, today we're joined by Aaron Willits, head football coach at Knox College, a proud 2008 alum, as we look ahead to the 2025 Prairie Fire football season. So, despite a tough 14-13 loss to Eureka College in the Lincoln Bowl this past Saturday, the team showed promise, a young roster, and standout performances. So, Coach Willits is here to talk about the season opener, what fans can expect this year, and the state of the program as Knox prepares for its home opener against Ripon College on Saturday at the Knosher Bowl. So, Coach, thanks for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me.
I will say, I said the same thing to President McGadney last week. Labor Day parade. I must say I was very impressed. There was an army of Knox College football players coming down the street. At least 3 came up to me, shook my hand, gave me a full-size candy bar, and a Knox Prairie Fire koozie, which looked like it came right out of the fan shop. So very high quality koozie. I've been using it every day. Invited me to the next game, gave my son a high five. I was very impressed. I must say. I'm not trying to blow smoke. I'm just saying you got some young men who are very respectable. So I do appreciate that. That was really cool.
Yeah, that's part of growing this. And the state of Knox football is growing in the right direction, and I believe that wholeheartedly. I wouldn't be here if I didn't think that was the case, that I was still moving the needle forward as an alum of the institution and somebody that cares deeply about the program. I want to be self-aware to the point that if it's not moving forward, right, like maybe I've moved it far enough and I got to pass it to the next guy. But we're still in very much a foundation building stage. The state of Knox football, prior to my arrival and even in the time that I'm here, we didn't get here in a 2 or 3 year stretch that we're going to flip this around in a 2 to 3 year stretch and all of a sudden become, something that maybe it rivals another institution around here, whether it's to the north or to the west of us. It's going to take, some time to build that consistency, but trying to go after the right young men. And each year the recruiting process gets a little more dialed in because we get a little more to kind of that optimal roster size where we've got real depth. The tough part in all the conversations that I've had with you guys and everybody else is that each year that depth is still relatively young, right? Because we're building and things. And so sort of the model that we've went to too is trying to dial that in. It's talking about being bigger, better, and smarter. Trying to get the on-field talent, but get the smart student that fits Knox. But on top of that, too, is that mature young man that recognizes, one, what they're getting themselves into. I think across the board in college football and the landscape these days, a lot of guys see the shiny object, even in Division I, the dollar and cents. And then what does that program actually want to do on a daily basis? What does it mean to be a student athlete or a young man in that program? What are the standards and the expectations that you're being held accountable to? And then when that's not the same as what the dollars and cents, even at the Division I level, says, that's where I think sometimes that transfer portal goes crazy. And so for us, being very deliberate about having those conversations about Knox, about the academics, about the standards and the expectations. And I tell our guys all the time, whether it's the Labor Day parade, whether it was High Five Friday over at Lombard, we're doing Wildcat Wednesday over at Silas. I try to overextend our program in all the right ways to bring fans to the games, to kind of promote us across campus and in the community. And so getting them to understand that it's bigger than them. And so all those experiences that they're at, whether it's the parade and saying hi, whether it's the dinner out that we do downtown and we hit up a few of these places, that when they go into those places, I know those people because I've been out trying to sell that, hey, we've got these great kids and we're building this football program and we want to have them around. And so it's that reciprocal relationship for those guys to be adults in those situations and make sure that the product that we're putting out in front of the community, in front of our campus as a whole is one that people want to associate with.
Right.
Since we're kind of on bigger picture things here, besides games, talk about how do you, and I ask this to a lot of coaches and ADs, how do you measure success?
Wins. And I know a lot of people would look at me and say, how's that your measure? Well, I'm as competitive as the day is long. I hate losing. I love winning. I grew up in Aledo, and it's something that I did a lot of. And that's part of the reason why I took the job at Knox is I want to win more games than maybe we have in the past. But I definitely think there's a point in time where we've got to grow and we've got to learn. And I think right now, one of the ways to measure success is, are we getting the right kids? Is the roster growing in the right direction? Is the talent look different? And I think one of the things that you'll see, in the success side of things, we're a young football roster, especially, on the defensive side of the ball. but not that this is the measure of success. Some of the bodies look a little bit different. A year ago we were playing with some great young men as well. Knox guys through and through. We were playing with a couple 5'8" defensive ends. Well, we walked out on Saturday with an entire freshman defensive line, and the talent level has gone up. It's not just because that's all we have, but the talent level has gone up. We've got 2 defensive ends that are 6'1" and 220 and 6'1" and 240. We've got 2 interior defensive tackles that are playing at the 6'3" size. Like, we just look different. But like I said, each year when almost half of the roster, as I've been here trying to grow to that sort of optimal number, which is probably in that 100 to 105, that's where Division I says the optimal number is these days. Each year, half of those guys have been first-year guys. And so do we...
And you're around, what, 80 now?
Yeah, we're right around 80. But on my roster, I've only got 3 seniors.
That's incredible. I mean, how... what led to that? You only have 3 seniors.
Well, if you go back 4 years, which was really my first real recruiting cycle when I got here, what looked like that opportunity to maybe step on the field was a little bit different than maybe what it is now. And so as you were trying to recruit, and when I first got here, we were in the 50s, that opportunity to get on the field, the light at the end of the tunnel was a little bit easier. And so each year, trying to recruit bigger, better, smarter, trying to recruit better talent that sort of fits the Knox mold, that competition goes up. And so there are some guys, there's a group of them, and again, great Knox students that were recruited to play football that will be on campus this fall that have just decided for any one individual reason that football wasn't for them. And so able to support the institution in that. It fit into, hey, you need to choose Knox because Knox is the right fit, and athletics is sort of the icing on the cake. It's not an institution where you can just come only for football, right? You've got to fit the everything, and you have to want that type of academics. But as sort of the standard and the expectation is not necessarily changed, but it's tightened up, and the competition for that rises, and we're recruiting better talent, the light at the end of the tunnel is not the same. And so some of those guys have hung it up and maybe moved on from the program, but Knox was still the right fit. So you look at that roster of 80, last 2 years we've put together recruiting classes over 40, pushing the 45 range. You graduate 3 seniors, obviously some natural attrition from there. We should be closer to that 105, that 100 to 105. And then it's just continuing to grow and mature in the game, and Saturday, when we circle back to there is one of those. Some key situational awareness, momentum, matters in games like that. And
so that game was at Eureka. Ended up you lose that 14-13. I think you led 13 to zip at half. What were some of the positives you took away from that game?
Well, I think the positives was that when we played well, we did play well. Mm-hmm. And on the defensive side, we played very fast. And when we were able to get stops and get off the field and stay fresh, we were able to stay mentally focused and locked in, and got into the red zone. I guess you're asking for positives. I think that's the biggest one. When we were going well, we were able to stay locked in and engaged, and not to switch and go to the negatives, but I got to see, those things too for what they are and where the growth is. And in the second half, they made some adjustments and they were able to stay on the field. And one of the things that I've talked about with that many young guys, freshmen and sophomores on our team, particularly freshmen, it's something that a lot of people don't think about. But the game changes. They go from 12-minute quarters to 15-minute quarters. Well, that's a whole nother quarter that they're playing. Right. And then on top of it, past the extra quarter, that is a longer time frame of a football game in general. And so just the mental stamina to stay engaged for that entire time. And in the second half, they got some sustained drives, picked up a few explosive plays. And now when the going wasn't as easy as the 3 and outs, now we started to get into some mental focus and staying actively engaged in the drives. And then obviously the momentum of young kids, that pendulum swings. The younger you are, it swings even further to control what you can control. And the things that we need to do is offensively, we need to finish drives, and we need to not be settling for field goals. When we hit the red zone, especially with what we do, we need to hunker down and we need to make sure that we're getting touchdowns. And if you look at the red zone trips and experiences, if we capitalize and we score touchdowns rather than field goals, and we stay mentally focused and locked in on the defensive side, after we gave up a big play, resettle and not give up another explosive after that, we would have been in a real good spot. And some of that comes with growing through some situational football with younger kids.
talking to Knox football coach Aaron Willits. Talk about some of your players. What's your team look like for 2025?
Yeah, the theme is going to be young. On the offensive side, the offensive line, we returned quite a few guys. We actually returned 4 guys that played and started for us last year. A junior in Kent Putman. He's a captain for us, and then 3 sophomores, 2 of them that played a lot of football last year, in Kai Tolliver and Gerald O'Hare. And what we do up front, we need those guys to sprint off the ball, and we need them to move and things like that. And we've got another first year that's kind of stepped into the role at the right tackle, young man DJ Colway from out in Colorado, and he's kind of really gelled with those guys right away. Quarterback position is Clay McClellan. He came in towards the end of last year and started a few games for us. He's actually grown physically as well, and now I think there's an opportunity for him to do some really good things in what we do.
What kind of style of quarterback is he?
He fits what we want with the option game, and he realized that coming in. He knew what we did. We don't shy away from telling quarterbacks, hey, we run triple option, and you're going to have to carry it, and you're going to have to be there. And so he actually came in at about 6'1", 175, 180 last year. And over the year kind of realized, hey, I'm playing more and things like that, and then kind of started to pay attention to Army. He actually, his dad was like, hey, man, you can do this too. Like, look at this guy last year out at Army, Bryson. I can't think of his last name, but had that year that he had. So Clay came back, over the year, kind of through the offseason and stuff. He's about 6'1", and usually fluctuates between 205 and 210. And so added some weight, understanding that, hey, I'm going to carry it on the midline, I'm going to carry it on the edge and things like that. But it's got the ability to throw the ball down the field. And, one of the things that I've been, pushing for and wanting is that ability to do both. And we were actually, one of the big plays that we had, last weekend was we were able to get everybody suckered up, and we threw the deep post over the top to Mario Bird, which is nice when you can get safeties down into the box with what we do, and then be able to hit that play action pass, over the top. And that was a big one for us.
Kind of briefly, what's the recruiting philosophy? There's always the question, you go local, do you go, wider? What's your philosophy as far as recruiting?
Well, the beautiful thing about Knox is that I can go anywhere as long as they're interested in what we do. But no, local is a priority for me. And I think, and talking with admissions and things like that, local is a priority for Knox. It wasn't for a long time, but it is for President McGadney. It is for Nathan Ament to make sure that we are regionally recruiting. And we got 2 great spots, the Quad Cities and Peoria right here. And obviously for me, being a local product myself in Aledo, making sure that we're a viable option. Now, are we the right option for every kid in the local area? No, we're not. The academics, changes that a little bit, but we need to be visible. And so for me, it's the Quad Cities to Peoria, stretch that a little bit in Bloomington, all of those local schools, big school, small school that fit sort of in the top of the Western Big Six down to the Peoria side, and then over to Quincy and the south side of the Western Big Six. And then we've got obviously 2 wonderful, bigger areas in Chicago and St. Louis, and that's sort of where that pipeline extension starts. But then we do have our outlier areas. Florida's been really good for us on the football side of things. Just sort of the number of kids, the volume of kids that, football's kind of a D1 state, or Florida's kind of a D1 football state. And so if you're not playing D1, where do you go? And so we started that when I first got here. Colorado is a really big state for Knox College as a whole. We've got a really good alumni base that we've had for many years. And so you kind of look at, I mentioned one, Kent Putman, and DJ, our first year that's playing on the offensive line. Those are 2 Colorado guys. Another one of my captains and a 3-year starter and returning all-conference player for us, Colin Finnigsmeyer, is a Colorado guy. And so getting those guys is really where it's at. But the top of the funnel for us, the measuring stick, while we say bigger, better, smarter, it probably actually starts smarter, bigger, better, because the number one limiting factor is where are they at academically? Mm-hmm. Are they going to be a good fit? And how are we going to have to assist them in their time to get them the resources? Because inevitably we know that we're going to have to provide some of those resources, through the institution and through athletics, to make sure that we're pushing them where we need to, because the academics are rigorous. But the smarter the young man, the better the fit academically, that he knows what he's getting himself into in the program, then the more that I can focus on football rather than having to chase guys around on the academic side of things. So that's the start. And And then one of the things that's changed for us in the recruiting side as we move closer to that 105 and getting to sort of that optimal size with depth is, what does that look like physically? How tall, how big, those types of things. We're no longer, in that scary side of things of 45 to 55 guys.
Yeah.
And do we have enough, for a 2-deep, let alone like, do we have enough to practice, let alone do we have enough to practice on both ends of the field? Now, what does that ideal football player look like for our schemes? Can we go get that? Can we target that? And a position that we really tried to target last year was the tight end spot. It's something that we use, and it's not your Travis Kelce flex out and sprint down the field. It's an actual on-the-ball tight end, down blocker, get him out on some quick passes, get him out on the bootleg stuff. And we were able to zero in on a few young men that fit that profile, and we had success. And so that leads me to believe that we can continue to go out into the local market, go out into our recruiting markets and say, hey, this is what we're looking for. And I think as we grow closer to that 105, sort of that optimal roster size too, we can unapologetically be who we are. We are a triple option team. The quarterback does need to be a runner. We are going to pound the rock inside. Offensive line is a necessity. And then on the defensive side, we're 4-man front and we need smart safeties. We're a safety check based defense. We don't, not that we weren't telling kids who we were before, but in that process of trying to make sure that we've got enough at 50 to keep things going, kind of got to be open to everything. And now here's what we do. And I think the biggest position that conversation has changed is in the quarterback spot. You're going to have to carry the ball. This is what we do. To the point where if we're watching film of a recruit in huddle, even if he's a wonderful academic student, but he's in the gun, he's 5 wide, and we never see him run the ball at all. We just ask him, like, here's what we do. Is this the right fit? And if he says, I don't know that it is, hey, man, that's awesome, because that's not what we do either. So we wish you the best of luck in the recruiting process.
Wrapping up here with Aaron Willits, Knox College football coach. So you home opener is Saturday against Ripon. Kind of tell us at what time, what will fans see this year? Any differences in experiences or traditions or uniforms or anything?
Well, Saturday at 1:00, we open up with Ripon. Ripon's coming down here. It's been a team that, of the years that I've been here, we had one that kind of got away from us every other year. It's been within about a score. And Ripon's kind of an upper tier to middle tier Midwest Conference team for a lot of years under Coach Ernst, and now transitioned over to Jake Marshall, who's in a similar situation as me. He's an alum back at his alma mater, and so we've kind of created a good relationship, and so excited to get after things on Saturday and kind of battle with those guys. This one would be one that we want. It's kind of evaded us in the time here. As far as new things, going on with football, kind of the bowl is the bowl. And we kind of adopted coming in from the backside last year and kind of running down the hillside, which I thought was a really cool addition for the guys. Still kind of growing into some of the traditions that make us Knox, because there's so many new faces. I didn't want to bring everything from everywhere else. I wanted to kind of create those organic things. But I think one of the biggest changes, is not going to necessarily look significantly different, but we did make the transition to Under Armour uniforms. Very classic look. We added a 3-bar stripe on the side of the pant, matches the helmet, and every time our guys would put on the new stuff, I think they look really, really sharp and look the part. I think some of that is maybe the guys that we're putting in the uniforms too, looking a little bit better. But no, I think, as we run the tailgate lot back behind Air Petroleum, thankful to have that gravel lot. We walk in there, make sure that our guys get a chance to see their families and things. But, we would love to see more of the community out all the time. And those are free events to get into. And that's part of the reason why we partner with the JFLs and try to get out to the Labor Day parade, is just to be more visible. For a long time, Knox kind of operated as just Knox. It was the school in Galesburg. And one of the things that I really want to kind of do and push and have over the years, and I know the president wants this as well, is we want to be Galesburg's Knox College. We're one and the same. And I thought a lot of the Venture Boldly campaign that the president mentioned, last weekend, they had an event with city manager, with Eric and Mayor Schwartzman. Obviously there's a connection there,
right.
But with Mayor Schwartzman and then kind of, Heather Bumps and Brad Nolden. And we're talking about a better Knox is good for Galesburg, and a better Galesburg is good for Knox, and that we've got to grow in this together. And I wholeheartedly believe, and it's opportunities like this, which I want to thank you guys for, just getting Knox out to tell our story, and how connected we are, is a big deal. And so, yeah, we are Galesburg's Knox College and want to be that for everybody at Galesburg.